Up next is a video interview that Faye Bryant, author, speaker, and coach of multiple books, did of me recently. Her most recent book, Elaina, is available online in local bookstores. Subscribe to this channel and also subscribe to her channel for interviews of other authors and great discussions. So again, please subscribe below, and if you like the video, give us a like, thumbs up, appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next time.
Hello, we're here
Hello.
today with Frank Kendralla, author of Two Are Better Than One, Don't Do This Thing Called Life Alone. And I can tell you that when you start reading this book, you will be hooked. Don't do it when you've got other things to get done that day, because you're going to end up sitting down and reading it. Okay, Frank, we're going to talk about being an author first. We're going to talk about what it's like, this writer's life that you're living. So I want to know, does writing exhaust you or exhilarate you?
It does both. I know it's one of those catch phrases, but it depends. When I was writing, it was very exhilarating. And because I was able to pour a lot of my soul out, I literally poured things that were on my heart, what the Lord talked to me about, and really what I wanted to say. Where it exhausts me, is now in the in-between stages, because I want to start on the second book of the series, but I'm busy promoting book one. And so I'm doing a lot of writing, creating films, mainly doing a lot of videos, creating to promote the book. That is exhilarating, but this in-between stage where I'm actually not writing like I want to. So I'm just writing short copy versus actually writing the book for the stage two. So the stage one, it was very energizing, but every time I read it, which I've done about 400 times, not exaggerating, it's very emotional.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I get that. So tell me about an early experience that you had where you realized that words and language have power.
Yeah, it actually started when I was very young. Both my parents enjoyed reading. My mom was more into magazines, and at the time, back in the 60s, I grew up in the 60s, there were a lot of different types of magazines that were out there, and novels and other books that were out there. And so my dad picked up a lot of those we read. And so I always had books around me, comic books, even though some people don't consider as such, but there's a lot you can learn from different things. It was when I was in high school, I had to teach the love of reading, and from that created a love of writing. And it wasn't as life went on, I really started to read all the time. I mean, I read it when I was a kid, and went into high school, and then when I went off to college, and then I kept reading all the time. And then in the mid 80s, somewhere in there, I forget exactly when, right around 85, I'm thinking, I fell in love with folks like Zig Ziglar, Og Mandino, and all those that I would consider the grandfathers of the style that we currently see today. I mean,
Right.
there was others that influenced them, but then you had the Brian Tracy's and all those. So I just got in the habit of reading. I started with about, I don't know, 1 to 2 books a month. Then I accelerated into about one a week, and then it went from there. So it was a combination of reading and writing. And when I did some MBA studies at Liberty University, and there we learned the important correct. And then I went on. Well, before that, I actually had my doctorate in MBA. I had a master's and a doctorate from Andersonville Seminary, and so I learned the power of writing there too. So that was just all through life. You just learn the power of words.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like, and the scriptures tell us that the words that come out of our mouth have life and death in them.
Yes.
That's incredible power. And
right.
I personally believe that we can do that with our pen too.
Correct.
So,
yeah, and I don't remember exactly when. I wish I would have. I could probably go back and find out when, but I'm gonna say at least 3, maybe 5 years ago, I began posting every single day on social media something of positive. So I posted a picture and something of trying to be positive affirmation. Then about maybe 2 years ago, really started to pick up power, because I think of the consistency, started to pick up more and more followers, and we have 2,300 followers on Facebook now and a few other social medias. And it's every single day trying to encourage, trying to challenge 1, 2, 3 line items. Sometimes it's just acronyms I like to put out there. Like the one I always put out, and it's going to be part of the next lesson is focus, follow one course until success. So part of that lesson will be, an image. If it's out of focus, then you really can't tell what it is and things like that. But I've been doing that. And because of it, and folks that have come to some of my workshop actually have started doing the same thing. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. And the one thing that I talked about in a recent workshop I did, I think it was last month, I can't remember now, but is the power of the image that you post and the words associated. Because you can really influence folks. And I'm with you. Is that we have power over life and death, and we also have the ability to encourage or discourage just by our words.
Right.
And then in the book, into it later, but I have a whole thing. And so the book itself. So I know you're talking about some other items, but the book, the power of words is. The book is fiction, but it's based on fact. It's based on everything. Everything in the book is either actually happened exactly, or as much literary you could go with, or a composite of events. And so what's in there is I actually have on there one chapter about assumption, about assuming, because most people, and you'll read this if you read the book, and one of the characters, Michael's one of the main characters, and Abby goes to Grandma, and Grandma states that it sounds like you're assuming, and the dialogue goes like this. Well, we all know what assuming means, and Abby goes to respond as most people do, and Grandma says, no, assuming is that you take it from your perspective, and often when you assume, and actually too often, you hurt the other individual because you don't take the time to look at it from their perspective. And people joke about the twisting of the word and stuff, but in my opinion, or unfortunately, I guess it's like this, I'll be 63 soon, is that when you assume, you really don't take time to listen for what the other person is trying to say. Whether they're right or wrong in their belief, you're not giving them the time to speak. So I feel that's a big issue. And that goes back to words. I see it often on social media. Folks of all ages, all generations, they're quick to respond to something without really thinking it through. Okay, how did you get this? Where did this thought process come from? Where did you get this opinion? How did you think that this is what I meant? All those different things. So,
right.
That's the power of words. Maybe too long of an answer, but yeah.
Not at all. Not at all. We're here to learn about you.
There you go.
All right. So, tell me. I mean, I've written fiction too, so I kind of know about this. But in your book, how much did you have to edit out?
The only thing I had an epilogue in there, and then through prayer, my wife and I discussed it, and we decided to end as we did and pick it up with book 2. To be very open, I did not think it was going to take this long to get started on book 2, even though I had the outline for book 2 already done, or pretty much done. But the promoting, because the book came out back in August, or it was hit the streets in August. And then we're doing a lot of promoting, doing book signings. We have we're going back over in Columbus together, and then we have one coming up in Boardman, Ohio, and then another one right after that. And just the promoting of it takes a lot of energy and time. I'm not against it, because I understand the value of it, but if I realized how much time it took, maybe I would have added 1 or 2 more chapters at the end to bring the user into the next book, almost into it, but not there. And the reason I'm saying it is I've had send me notes saying, well, when's the next one coming out? When's the next one coming out? And I'm thinking, I don't know, because I've got to get this first one promoted to where I want it to be.
Right.
But maybe the next one, just releasing it, will help promote the first one too. So I have to decide on that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's hard work.
Yes, it's a lot of work. Yes, but it's all fun. It's as we started with, it's energizing, but at the same time, it does wear you out. So, but it's good.
Right. Okay, so you started telling us some about the book. Tell us the backstory. Where did this story come from?
So the backstory is the summary of it is me. At 62, when I started writing the book, I was just at 62 and talking to my 30-something-year-old self about relationships and life. And it's something that I wish I knew all of it then, which obviously you can't, because that's what life's learning and wisdom is about. But if I knew all of it then, or if I can instill it upon others, it would remove or reduce some of the heartache that life brings. In the sense is that we too often try to do things ourselves, and that hence the title, "To a Better Than One, Don't Do This Thing Called Life Alone." The subtext of it is from Ecclesiastes 4:9, "Don't do this thing called life alone," gives indication that it's about just married couples, but it isn't. In the book, it's a story. It summarizes all the people that have come into my life and have walked alongside me to help me along. And so that's part of the backstory. The other part of the backstory is to show that success is different in the eyes of everybody. Okay, what I mean is this: for some people, success is a 7-figure yearly income. For others, making $50,000 is a grand event. For others, success is, and I sort of get envious sometimes with this, is some of the 30-somethings that are out there living that nomad life. So my generation did in the 60s. In the sense is, they're going to live now, and then they'll pick up life at a different stage.
Right.
And that could be for different discussion. But too often we get tied up with building a career, this, that, and then the next thing you know it, 15 years have gone by, and you miss things that you shouldn't have missed. But I've been very fortunate. I've been very blessed in the senses that the things I've got to do. So some of the backstory, some of the items you'd have to read the book to fully understand. But the man that led me to the Lord, he's illustrated in the book, but not as such as what's happened in life. I preached in the prison system for, I think it was 9 years. I worked with the youth for 12. And some of that's outlined there in just like one paragraph types of items, but those are all brought together, and they're actually sometimes composites in the story itself to keep the book flowing. So that's some of the backstory is the characters, in a sense, is that they existed, but they might not have been exactly like them. Like the main, one of the main grandmothers is called Nana in the book, and that actually illustrates my mom. But my mom was always called Grandma. So if you kind of put that into perspective, so
Right.
and then we could go on, and then like Nana in there or Grandma in there is actually a composite of some other folks. One of which would be my wife, and one of which would be a neighborly lady that we had. So there's just various composites. So that's backstory. But the main backstory about it is so that whomever reads it, wherever they are in life, they get to the other side of the book. And the main hero of the book, and we were actually I was at the VA Center on Saturday. We did an event for them and everything. But the main hero of the book shows up, and I won't give it away because you do have to read it to get to this point. But the main hero shows up in an like often in life is often like in war or life itself, the hero isn't the one that you think it could or should be. And so the book is written in the style of what comedians call redirect. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term, but for those that might be watching and don't, a redirect is if you're going one direction, like in a comedy, and it goes completely different. You hit this one and you're halfway down the other direction and you realize that it's different. And that's what the book I wrote in the same manner. So it's going one complete direction, and then all of a sudden a redirect comes in, and the reader is in a completely different mindset. And even when I read it, like I said, 400 times later, I still cry when I get to that point.
Right.
So that's some of the backstory. The other part of backstory is for me to show that everybody needs assistance or should seek for assistance from all different generations, all different races. And there's, and I give 2 reviews always, is one person at Reddit said it's like a modern day Pilgrim's Progress. And for those watching or listening, Pilgrim's Progress is basically a story of a journey of a Christian as they walk through life. And years ago, one of the only books available was Pilgrim's Progress in the Bible.
Hmm.
So I never thought of it that way, but as every book that's written, it has different impact. So one person read it and they said that. Another person that read it, and she had stated that it is a multiracial book about life. And so neither one was how I intended it, but that's how it came out.
Right.
And when I say wasn't intended, I just write what the Lord put in my heart. And so some more of the backstory was we have a significant amount of property. And so I'd be out on a tractor cutting some grass and I'd get a thought and I'd come running in the house and then I'd type away. And then when that thought was gone, I'd go back and cut some more grass. And then this process continued for a while, but it took less than 2 months to put it all on paper. So the backstory is my entire life put on paper in 38,000 words. So now it's not the full life because I wanted to cut it off at less than 50,000 because I wanted to be a quick read. One of those reads where somebody picked it up, they got on an airplane, and depending on their flight, they could have most of it read by the time they get to where they're going.
Right.
And
Well, that's great.
yeah, and so I wanted it that way because I'm somebody that I've tried my career, 40 years of corporate America. So I think it was part of one of your earlier questions. Is I spent 40 years in corporate America. I still work in corporate America, a variety of different jobs. Anywhere from I had one position where I had 150 employees and 7 managers working for me. So I've been all over. I've had like project manager style positions, and depending on what you want to call it. I've had positions of just a variety of. I spent more months in management with many people working for me, and then my current position is more of is a staff position in the sense as we build tools and things. That'd be for another discussion. But so all that came to play because I understand what goes on in life. Sometimes you get so busy. Sometimes you have deadlines due. But I didn't make it boring putting business backstory behind it. Book 2 will have more of that kind of stuff, but it won't be boring. It's going to be right now. It's based upon ethics, integrity, and a few things like that. So this will be book 2 of it.
Cool. Okay. I have a question.
Sure.
How did Michael actually end up in that strange foreign town without knowing how he got there?
Well, without giving too much of it away,
yeah,
because it's similar happened to me once. Now, not exactly the same. Michael had a long week. I didn't put a lot of it in the book, but he had a long week, actually a long couple months, working from before the birds rise to after everybody goes to sleep, sleeping in his office and things like that, and maybe going to a neighboring gym to get a shower. And he gets home, and him and his wife, Abby, have a blowout fight. He just starts driving, and I don't put any of the dialogue or any of that in there. And I thought about putting that in there, but some have done the same thing. But sometimes you just start driving and you don't know how you end up where you end up. You just drive, you're not paying attention.
mm-hmm.
You're just talking to yourself. And I used to tell this joke, it has nothing to do with the book, but it does. It says, so why you talk to yourself? This is why I like to talk to intelligent people. So why do you answer back? Because I like to hear what they say. And it was an old joke you used to tell your grandkids, Pappy, why do you talk to yourself? And it's because I like to talk to intelligent people. But I remember when it actually came, and it has similar to do this, but I won't go into great detail, but it was a long time ago, very, very long time ago. And I was just before I was saved, and I just got it. I had a Corvette at the time, and I remember getting in it, and I just started driving because I was frustrated with a lot of things going on. I was trying to think how old I was, maybe 21 years old, 20. I forget. I was just out of college, and all the money I saved, I bought this Corvette, and I just started driving. And next thing I know, I ended up in this town. I have no idea where I was, and then I realized where I was because I've been there before. So I won't go into a lot of that, but I remember. So that came into play of building that. Is that I was very frustrated. I didn't know what I wanted to do, even though I was out of school and I was working and making some money, but I didn't know which direction to go. And I just started driving. And, I look back at that time, there was no GPS, there's none of that. I think, how in the world did I end up here? But I did. And then with some quick research where I was at, I figured out where I was. And then I went So that's how I ended up there. He just started driving with no thought of mine. And, any guy, or many guys will probably be open to this, is, you start yelling at the window, the windshield, you're talking to yourself, I work all day, work 80 hours this week, and nobody seems to appreciate it, on and on and on, that story, the dialogue you have. And in the book, Michael winds up in another town, and he falls asleep, and then there. So that's how it happened. Though it was a composite of two things that actually happened to me.
Wow.
Yeah,
I like knowing that it's come from you. That it's not it wasn't in your imagination.
No, and then there's actually a third part to it, and I will say this just because we're on here. I won't give too much of it away, but this was, I'm trying to think. It was probably in the late 80s, and again, long before mobile devices and all this stuff. And it was a long week, and I don't know how many hours straight. And I was on my way home, and I was so tired that I couldn't stay awake. And I'd worked about an hour away from the house, so I pulled off. Put it in a parking lot. This is a true story, but I didn't put it like this in the book. I actually made it a better ending than it was. And I pulled it off because I was tired. And then a few hours later, I wake up and I see a ticket on my window. I thought, good night. I just sleeping. And then I realized obviously I was parking in no park. So anyway, I fought the ticket and I went to court with it. And the officer, I asked the officer, to the judge, and the judge was there, as to why he didn't even check if I was alive. He said, that's not my job. And obviously it doesn't turn out that way in the book. So those three things actually built that scene, but I made it into a positive manner in the book.
Yes, you did.
Yes.
Yes, you did. Okay. And so you touched briefly on it, about your experience in the corporate world actually has a big effect on your book.
Yes. So early on in my career, I tried to think how I could put it, not to get too much away from the book and not to get too much away from the next one, but I experienced a lot of things. I came out quick in corporate America. I was on a fast track for a lot of different things, and my children were little. And I say this, and if I were to talk to anybody face to face, like we are, but I mean, guys mainly, is the first 3 years of my youngest daughter's life, I don't remember. I was working too much. I'd be up at 3:30 in the morning to be in the city by 6. And like most cities, if you don't get out of there by a certain time, you might as well stay until 6 or 7 because you're going to sit in traffic for 2 hours. And so it became a habit rather than anything else. You're looking at the clock and it's 4 o'clock and you're ready to leave. And the next thing you know, it's 7 and then 8. And some of that comes out into the book. And then so I fast tracked, in many things. I had a lot of great positions, and I still do have a great, position in corporate America. But I saw a lot of people lose a lot. And I don't remember when it was, but I'm going to say about 15 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. I realized, yeah, definitely longer. I realized pace or path. I didn't want to. So actually, I'm going to tell you, it was 18 years ago. I remember now coming to my mind. And I didn't want to keep that pace. I didn't want to continue missing out on things that I was missing just to be working at a good paying position, if you follow what I'm saying. And so that's what drove me to put all this down. The other thing that caused me to put this down, I have 6 grandchildren, and some of them will never treat me because they're so young. They range from 18 down to 3. And so the older 2 will know me because in one manner, the others will know me in a different manner. And then the youngest will maybe not know me enough because we're not around, in the sense is that, they're, by the time they get to be where they're going to be cognitive of things that are important, I could be long gone. You follow? So I had this discussion, I don't remember when it was, early in the year. I was talking to somebody who was in this, and we're just chatting. He was very successful in what he did. He had multiple businesses, a lot of real estate, and his wife was very successful in what she was doing. And we're having this discussion. I told him, I said, I really want to make sure my grandkids understand some of the struggles of the way corporate America is. And he says, well, just put it on paper. And so, because originally the book was going to be nonfiction, and it started out as a typical self-help, and it was really boring. I just put it that way. And so I figured the Lord spoke in parables. People love reading novels, and if I could mix the two based upon some of the authors that I really enjoy, like Og Mandino and Annie Andrews, The Alchemist, that book, it's a powerful book. And I could go on, but those books really played a strong impact in me. But at the same time, I wanted to be able to give this book to anybody, even folks that normally don't read, but it could keep their interest and maybe they could learn something from it. So that's sort of that too.
Well, there you've almost completely answered my last question of what do you hope that your book will achieve in the lives of your readers?
So there's multiple things. Okay, so my goal with the book, and I don't think it's lofty, although it could sound it. I want it to reach at least 250,000 people. And there's a couple of reasons. The book is, and it has tracked real well on Christian inspirational. Because it is an inspirational book, it is faith-based in the sense of although all the characters are not Christians, you'll see throughout the book, and it's multi-generational, multiracial as I talk about it. And when I say and then there's also multi-religions, if you're going to talk, and I won't give any of the characters away. But I wanted to reach at least 250,000 because that's 250,000 reached possibly with the gospel. Okay, so when you read the book, we'll get to the point as to what I'm talking about. The other side of it is it's for that dad that's 30-something, 40-something, or even 50-something, and they're thinking, and for mom too. I mean, it is written from a guy in a guy's voice, but ladies love the book too. Okay, so, but I say it this way, it's written in a guy's voice, in the sense is that we do things not right or wrong, different, just different. And that's a book called Love and Respect. Yes, that's actually in a course too, and that's based on that. Is that we're just different. Not that one's right or wrong. It's just different. And so anyhow, 250,000 would be reached with the gospel. 250,000 that would be reached that. Because when you read through it, there's actually a lot of self-help stuff through it, and I don't outline them as such, but I give them like one that always comes to my mind is that your greatest enemy is actually you, because you don't think it's the imposter syndrome. It's a lot of detail of it, but it's in there. The other one is a golden handcuffs, in the sense is that you get to be a very successful job and you're doing well in it, but you're afraid to do something else because of the pay, the benefits, whatever associated to it. So that's that. And then the third part that I really would hope is encouraging people. There's a lot of, I call fun quotes in there. There's a lot of acronyms, and I would hope that it would get us start to think and maybe encourage somebody to write their story.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Frank, I thank you so much for sharing yourself and sharing about your book. And I hope that you reach that 250,000 and many, many more.
Well, thank you. It's been fun. It's been really fun. Thank you.
Awesome.